Hey everybody, Coach Toolshed here, and before we dive into today's main topic, I just have to say, it's been a couple of weeks since I've done a video, and the reason why is I sat through the 2019 Video Game Awards in their entirety. That's right, I sat through hours and hours and hours of that drivel, and after watching it all, it has left me even more, somehow, I didn't think this was possible, it has left me even more cynical about the future of the gaming industry, especially as we head into next year, because the disgusting amount of commercialization that's been going on, it's just been getting worse and worse. And this year, I think, after watching it, I didn't even know what to say. At one point, they had an orchestra up to play some music for Ghost of Tsushima, and at the end, when the orchestra was taking their little bows, you just heard a PlayStation come up, like, just blaring over the loudspeakers. There was ridiculous product placement. Even Jeff Keighley, the guy who comes up with the award show and hosts it, he seemed uncomfortable with some of the stuff that was going on and the commercialization that was going on. It was disgusting what was going on. But anyway, that is not the purpose of today's video. It's a long intro. Today we're going to be discussing, gather around, we're going to be discussing Fallout 76 and Bethesda Game Studios. And you may have noticed, over the last couple weeks, there seems to have been another spike in the amount of errors and problems that have been going on with this game. Whether we're talking about the broken update, where people were talking about having their armor being broken when they reloaded their weapons. How does that even happen? Or you have the issue where you had hackers that were spawning Fallout 4 assets into the game. They were creating very overpowered weapons, and then once again we had the issue with the black market online springing back up where people were selling these overpowered weapons. That was all going on. That's stuff that we were covering back in January or February, I think, of this year. I did a video about that because the same thing was basically going on. People were just selling overpowered weapons on third-party sites. Same thing was happening just a couple weeks ago. It exploded once again. And now, most recently, we had the issue, of course, that everyone's been talking about with the hackers on PC that were able to take people's inventory. Now, Bethesda has assured us that they fixed it, but as with many of the quote-unquote fixes that Bethesda has made for the game, I'm sure it's only a matter of time before these walls get broken down again, and the hackers will just be back to doing the exact same thing. Because the issue with this game has been and always will be. This is never going to go away. I see people saying, oh, Bethesda needs to install this, Bethesda needs to do that. The issue here is fundamental, and it's something that was pointed out well over a year ago, way before the game ever launched, by people who've been modding Bethesda games for years. It's something that even people like myself who don't have really in-depth technical knowledge when it comes to building engines, but even people like myself, it's obvious to see when Bethesda has so much of the data for this game running on the client side as opposed to the server side where they control it, it's going to continue to leave the door open for any PC player that has the know-how and the will to go about and start hacking the game. It's going to leave those doors open for people. Also, take into account that the creation engine and the various iterations of that going back to the Gamebryo engine, this is stuff that people have been working with on PC now for 2 decades. Modding these games, everyone knows how to do it. People at Bethesda who work there now have probably, some of them have less experience working with the engine than some of the modders who are out there working on Bethesda games and have been doing so for many years. Because something else that a lot of people like to forget, Bethesda at one point was a pretty small studio, Bethesda Game Studios. When they were making games like Skyrim and Fallout 4, they did not have a large studio. It was really just over 100 people making these games. And then in 2016, you can go back and see articles talking about Bethesda more than doubling the size of their studios. And since that time, also, they've added the Austin studio and a couple of mobile game studios. So now they've swelled to over 400 employees. And as a natural result of that happening, the talent pool at any studio is going to get diluted. When you quadruple the size, or even if it's not quite quadrupling at this point, if you triple the size of any studio, it's going to dilute the talent pool. And that's exactly what's happened here. And now we're at the point where these updates are getting pushed out. They're constantly breaking. People report on it on YouTube for days on end. It gets all over Reddit. mainstream sites start picking up on it, and then Bethesda will announce, oh yes, we're working on it, we're going to shut down servers and fix it. And this cycle just keeps happening, and people keep asking the question, well, the game's been out for over a year now. How does this keep happening? And I just explained it to you. It's because Bethesda decided to take a huge shortcut with this game. They did not build a proper engine to run a game with multiplayer functionality in 2019. They simply didn't. I know some people will go back and say, well, the foundation of the creation engine is actually part of a multiplayer engine from 20 years ago. Yes, okay. The demands on the engine are far different now than they would have been 20 years ago. And the fact that Bethesda continues to think that for Starfield and Elder Scrolls 6 that they can just keep, swapping out different parts to this same ancient engine, it's just a joke. And making a multiplayer game out of it was never going to work. And I know there's people that will rush to the defense and claim that it's not actually a problem with the engine, but I've made this point before. Even if it's not the creation engine that's the problem, because some people can do great things with it. But even if it's not a problem with the engine itself, Bethesda Game Studios does not understand how to utilize their own engine properly. The people who made the engine in its infancy, they're not around anymore. This is a whole new group of employees working with this stuff, and they clearly do not understand how to implement it. And also, do not forget, I brought this up again last June or July in 2018, after the announcement, when we had the no-clip documentary going around. I was trying to point out to people that they were going to hand this game off to the Austin studio. And if you don't know anything about the history of Bethesda Austin, that's a studio that has been around for a long time that never actually shipped a game. They had games canceled. They worked briefly with id on a DLC for Doom, but that's the only thing that they've ever done. And for Bethesda to just foist this game upon them, and for people to just put the faith in, oh, Bethesda, I loved their games for years. You're not understanding. The game is in the hands of a studio that has no experience shipping games. Fallout 76 is their only game. And based on what we've seen with this game, I don't know why anyone would have faith in them. We've now been over a year with this game on the market. And as many of us were saying before the game launched, Bethesda never understood what they were making. They don't understand the market for games like this. They don't understand how to make an online game engaging. They didn't understand the demand for content. You can look now. We've been out for over a year. There's no other game in this genre that launches that hasn't had at least some form of a major content update within the first year. That simply doesn't happen. Most games have at least 2 or 3 big add-ons to content throughout the course of the year. What did Bethesda do? They added a battle royale. That's it. I wouldn't consider that content update that is pertinent to the main game. That is a completely separate standalone mode. And not only that, but Bethesda assured us before launch several times that they weren't going to make a battle royale. I have an entire video up when they launched Nuclear Winter, where I read off several different instances where Pete Hines specifically said that they weren't making a battle royale with Fallout 76, and yet that's the only substantive content updates that they've made throughout the entire year. They've added a few events. The game, I guess you could say, runs more stably than it did a year ago. I will say that. It's still not a stable game. It still runs pretty poorly. You get a lot of lag and input issues. The AI, as I showed in my last video that I did with Fallout 76, is still broken. Just like it was over a year ago, the game is still a mess in many ways. Bethesda still is constantly putting out broken updates. Every time a major update comes out, rest assured you're going to see videos from the usual suspects talking about how this is broken, that's broken, and it's never broken in favor of the player. Have you noticed that? You never get any buffs. It's always, oh, well, when you do this, this breaks. Or when you do this, this breaks. Or you lose all of this. People losing their inventory. People losing their scrap items. It's always something bad for the players when something gets broken. I've yet to see anything where something broke in the player's favor. Like, oh, players are suddenly getting unlimited caps. No, that's not happening. People are just getting drained of resources. That's what's always constantly happening. And players have been calling for test servers for this game for months now, after there was a huge broken update that happened over the summer, and at that point players were like, I'm putting my foot down. Most of them haven't, but they've been calling for test servers for months. Bethesda even at one point talked about something about test servers, and still nothing's happened. Nothing's going on. This game is still an absolute disaster, and still a year later is the biggest joke in the gaming industry. And it's all because Bethesda decided not to take the time to build an actual proper engine for this multiplayer game. And as a result, Fallout 76 is always going to have these issues. It's only a matter of time before the people who write these scripts for these hacks find another way around whatever hotfix Bethesda has just implemented. Because, like I said, there's too much data being stored on the client side. This was pointed out to Bethesda a long time ago. But it doesn't matter because the game is what it is now. They're not gonna scrap it and restart it. So if you're playing this game, especially on PC, because that's where most of this stuff occurs. But if you're on PC, just know you're going to continue to have these issues. This stuff isn't going to stop. It's just going to continue because Bethesda took too many shortcuts building this game. They don't test their builds properly before pushing out updates. They don't have proper anti-cheat in place for this game, and it's not going to stop. And as time goes on, more and more resources are going to get diverted away from this game and into other projects, because this game will not continue to stay relevant to their budget. As players continue to leave and as revenue continues to decline, you're going to see more problems arise, most likely, because there's going to be less people at the studio working on the game, and it's inevitable. So to everyone still playing the game, good luck to you. Honestly, I don't know why you would continue to support this developer and act like you have faith in them. As I said earlier, you're not putting faith in the Maryland company per se. You're putting faith in this Austin studio that has never done anything but Fallout 76 that has gone to market. And what we have is still an uninspired, broken mess of a game that continues to be broken over a year later. And if you still want to support them, I mean, that it's really on you at this point. People clearly are not going to be able to convince you otherwise. But I'm just trying to point these things out to you. Maybe one or two people can finally get it through their head that this stuff isn't going to stop. And Bethesda isn't your buddy. And Bethesda has sold you a broken, lazily made game. And I've seen the excuse made several times over the last few days. Well, every game gets hacked. And yeah, that's true. Every PC game with online component is gonna attract hackers. There's really no way around it. But to that, I would say, well, if you say every game's been hacked, well, I say us as adults, if you're of adult age, odds are we've all been in a car accident of some kind, right? But not all of us have been in a car accident where the car flipped over 10 times, landed in a ditch, and exploded into a fireball. But Bethesda and Fallout 76 have done the gaming equivalent of that. So yeah, while you can say that everyone gets hackers, it hasn't been like this. This is unique. There's so many problems with this game, ongoing issues with this game. And like I said, they're just not going to stop. So if you still want to keep playing this game, buckle up for the ride, because it's going to be a long one and it's going to be a bumpy one. As for myself and many others, we've already abandoned this game. And our faith in Bethesda is pretty much entirely gone. And as far as I'm concerned, that's the only rational way to think about Bethesda at this point. They don't care about you. They don't care about me. They don't even apparently care about their products anymore. It's all just about getting more money out of you. They've turned into every other company that's out there. They are EA. They are Activision. Doesn't matter anymore. Bethesda's a lost cause. There's many different reasons for that. I'm not going to get into that today. But I didn't want to let all of this Fallout 76 stuff go by in the last few weeks without commenting at all about it. But that's it for me, Coach Toolshed. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. Please subscribe if you want to stay in tune with the channel headed forward. And as always, keep it turned to 11.